Hi, I'm Jaclyn.
And I'm Courtney, and this is Caffeinated Crimes.
On the day we are recording this, it is the day after Halloween, so we hope you guys had a wonderful, spooky, safe Halloween.
Yes, we hope you had a COVID-friendly Halloween. Maybe you got some candy somehow, which would be awesome. But yeah, it was Halloween. It was kind of cold here where I live.
It was here too.
Cold front came through, but it was nice.
Yeah, Andrew bought us some candy at the store, so we just sat home and ate candy and did nothing. So I saw, we live on a busier road, but some of the less busy roads in our neighborhood, we were out walking the dogs and there were some people out, with kids in costumes, but it also seemed more like people were going to, their friends' houses and, small get-togethers versus, just regular trick-or-treating, and, nobody, came to our house, so I don't know.
Yeah, we passed, a trunk-or-treat, which I'll explain, because Kevin had no idea what that was, but it's usually just,
Kevin?
He'd, I don't know if that's, a southern thing, or if, where he was, never did it, or he just didn't go to church, so he didn't know. But he'd never heard of it until he moved, to the south.
Oh, wow.
But, yeah, so basically it's just, usually churches, and they'll just have all their members come and, decorate their trunks, so you can just, walk around the trunks instead of walking around a neighborhood. Mm-hmm. I honestly just wonder if it's because, in the south, usually, houses are, 30 feet apart.
That's true, yeah. And I feel like a lot of, different, other community organizations, in addition to churches, have started, I feel like it's not just, I feel like it started with churches, but I don't think it's just churches anymore. I think lots of community organizations, do something similar in, a parking lot or whatever, so.
But yeah, let me know if you've heard of a trunk or treat, because Kevin had never heard of it, and, he's I don't know what you're talking about, so I don't know if that's, a southern thing, or, a Kevin didn't know it thing, so.
Interesting. Well, something Andrew didn't know today, because I woke up this morning, I slept in very late, and I was surprised that the dogs let me sleep in so late, and I mentioned it, and Andrew asked what time it was, and I was like, oh, it's 8:45, which means it's, really 9:45, because, the time changed last night, and Andrew's like, what do you mean it's really 9:45, and I was like, because the time changed, and he's like, it did? I was like, yup. He's like, are you sure that was this weekend? Yes, Andrew, I'm positive that was this weekend.
That would be such a weird thing to, lie about. No,
right?
Gotcha.
Just kidding. Wasn't that a funny joke? Poor Andrew would not function as an adult, in the 90s where you had to, change all of your clocks, and it wasn't, because now literally everything we own other than our cars is changed for us, so, and I'm sure new cars now change themselves. I don't know. We still have older-ish cars, so they don't, but.
Yeah, I have an older car, so I don't even have automatic locks. No, my clock is definitely not changing itself.
If you guys have a new fancy car that changes the clock during time change, let us know, because we would like to know that, because we don't live that life, so we don't know.
My parents have this cool clock on the wall. It's called I think my dad said it's called an atomic clock, and so it goes with the satellites our phones do. So it's always cool. Perfectly on time, and when the time changes, it changes itself because it's going off the satellites.
Yeah.
And so he loves it, and he's like, yeah, you don't have to do anything. It just connects, and it's perfect on the dot. I'm like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. I guess our stove and microwave and stuff we still have to change manually, but I think that's it.
Yeah. Also, guys, if you're wondering, I do have internet.
Finally, it just took a couple weeks.
Took a couple weeks, but I finally have internet. And it works really well, and it's very exciting. And I was mostly excited because I could set up my Ring doorbell. And the first night it's set up, boy, did I catch something interesting.
Oh, yes.
So, picture it. It's a Tuesday night at 3:30 in the morning, but we were woken up by a car honking, but we live on a very narrow road with street parking, and I'm like, okay, it's 3:30 in the morning, probably someone's out drunk driving, someone almost gets hit, whatever. But then it comes back for 15 minutes is this woman driving down the road at 5 miles per hour, just honking her horn nonstop. It looks like she was trying to find my neighbor. I don't know what my neighbor did to her. I don't know if this lady is just crazy. I don't know. But that was my 3:30 in the morning, and I could see them outside fighting in the road. So, that's cool. Welcome to your new place.
Yep, this lady was very angry as she's just laying on her horn, driving back and forth. And I'm like, wow, how selfish and obnoxious do you have to be?
Yeah, like I sent my mom the video, and like Eli heard it, and he was like, "It's a train! It's a train!"
Right.
I'm like, "It sounds like a train. You're right."
Yeah,
Like,
it legit did. Yeah. Let us know if you guys have ever had to deal with crazy neighbors, or let us know if you guys have ever been the lady who was wronged and felt the need to lay on her horn in the middle of the street at 3 a.m., because we'd like to hear some explanations behind this.
I really would. I just want to know what's going on. And like, I feel like I've always like maybe it's me and I'm cursed, and I just have neighbors who like they're crazy or something. I don't know, because my old downstairs neighbor used to fight with her boyfriend all the time, and they would like scream at each other. And now I'm like, maybe that wasn't so bad.
Well, when we lived in an apartment, the guy that lived above us was a Marine police officer, no less, and was supposedly cleaning his gun and accidentally fired it, which should not happen ever if you were a gun owner, but especially not if you are a Marine or an MP. But anyway, and fired it into the hall across from him. So, that happened. So, apartment living has some interesting quirks.
Yep. Yes, it does.
So, I guess we are ready to get into today's episode. Again, as we mentioned, today is November 1st. So if you guys are in the United States or probably anywhere in the world with this election, you are aware that our election is this coming Tuesday. So we have a political themed episode for you guys. Don't worry, it's not about Trump or anybody current, but it's a very interesting case. So we hope you guys enjoy it.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about Donald Trump. We're not going to talk about Joe Biden.
Nope.
So, we are going to do the case of Byron Looper. So, our sources for today are a Nashville Scene article, murderpedia.org, and an ABC News article as well. So, on October 19th, 1998, Senator Tommy Burks was preparing his pumpkin patch on his farm in Cumberland County, Tennessee. He was anticipating some nursery school children to attend. 1998 was an election year for Tommy Burks, who was representing the Democratic Party in the Tennessee State Senate. He'd held the position since 1978, and he was very likely to be reelected. Then, on this early October morning, he was shot in the head in his pickup truck. The police immediately had one leading suspect, his opposition, Byron Looper. Byron Looper was born on September 15th, 1964 in Cookeville, Tennessee. And just so you know, Cookeville is Putnam County, just so you guys know. And Cookeville is about halfway between Nashville and Knoxville. So for any of you listeners kind of unfamiliar with Tennessee, it's like smack dab in the middle, basically. He entered the U.S. Military Academy at West Point as part of the class of 1987, but he left before graduating. One source says that he was honorably discharged after sustaining a knee injury. The other was like he just left, so I don't really know why there's two different stories, but either way, he left and moved to Georgia after he left the academy. He was later elected president of the Young Democrats of Georgia, but he asked to resign halfway through his term, according to one member of his group who encouraged him to resign. And then in 1987, he ran for Georgia State House of Representatives as a Democrat, but lost. And so after his loss, he took a job as a legislative aide for his uncle and fellow Democrat Max Looper. And the Georgia Democratic Party also unofficially admitted that Max Looper was an active member of the Ku Klux Klan, which is not a good look. Don't do that.
No, please don't. Please don't do that.
So apparently Byron made an impression in Georgia, and one member of the Georgia House, Doug Tepper, remembered him quite well. So Tepper described Byron as an unusual character, and he remembers Byron calling one time at 3 or 4 in the morning, saying how he'd filed a lawsuit against a law school in Puerto Rico because they wouldn't teach one of his classes in English.
Okay.
Why are you going to Puerto Rico for law school is my question. So of course Tepper is like, this man is out of his mind. Like, this isn't gonna end well. Like, what do you think you're gonna get out of this? Mm-hmm. And it is reported that Byron ultimately settled for a small sum, but this would not be his last time trying to pick fights with like powerful or big entities. So in 1992, Byron decided to return to Tennessee, and then he became a very conservative Republican. So he's like, I guess the Democrats don't like me. Let me try the Republicans.
Switch parties, see how this works.
Yeah. And you'll also kind of see in this story how, like, what we view as Republican and Democrat today is not exactly represented in these people. So again, he's like, I need some political power. I'm just going to start running for stuff. So he ran for the state house and he lost. And at that point, he just started to run for anything he could. So I guess anything he was even the least bit qualified for, he started running.
I just see him, like, recycling all of his campaign signs, just, like, taking a Sharpie and, like, marking out whatever it is and writing it in.
Yeah. Just imagine the ballot, and it's like, why is this guy on every single category? What happens if he wins it all? But in 1996, he was elected as Putnam County Property Assessor, running as a Republican. And 1996 is also the year Byron is like, you know what? I don't like my middle name Anthony anymore. I'm going to change it to low tax. And it includes parentheses. So his name is like Byron, parenthesis, low tax, close parenthesis, Looper.
Yes.
So obviously he's promising to lower taxes, and that's like a big thing for him. But the property assessor does not determine or set the tax rate. So,
he's like, just so you know, I'm for low taxes. I can't do anything about it, but that's what I want.
Just so you know. Yeah, so he had like no power to set any tax rates. He was just the property assessor, basically. So Mary Jo Denton, who was a reporter for 40 years with Cookville's Herald-Citizen, she stated he started big public quarrels with almost every other office in the county for no reason that anyone could see. So everyone else in the county, he was like, I don't like you. I'm going to fight you. So Byron is promising to break up the good old boy network of Putnam County. He said the sheriff, district attorney, and county commission, among others, were in cahoots, which, I mean, it's a small town Tennessee. Maybe they were.
Yeah,
but
it's probably pretty likely. Doesn't surprise me.
But he promised, as an elected official, he would expose corruption in the county.
Oh,
okay,
is
sure.
that what you're going to do, low tax? Is that really what you're going to do?
As the property assessor, which I didn't even really know was a position, to be honest. like, dude, you don't hold that much power here.
Yeah, no.
It was also said, as property assessor, he used the office's equipment to just flood the media with a number of bizarre and self-congratulating press releases, although he failed repeatedly to file property tax valuations with the state government on time.
Like, that's your only job.
You got one job, and you can't do it well. There were also allegations made that Byron offered reduced tax assessment for local businesses in exchange for large political contributions. Although few, if any, businesses took him up on this offer, because it's pretty highly illegal, and also, like, who is this guy?
Yeah, like, you're insane, and also that's illegal, and yes, I know it happens every day, but no, I'm going to pass on that, thanks.
Yeah. So later, an ex-girlfriend did sue him for child support and fraud, saying that he had used his official position to steal her house. So he's exposing corruption, and he's likely being corruption, basically. Yes. So in March of 1998, Byron was charged with 14 counts of official misconduct, theft of services, and official oppression. So Byron, of course, said these are just politically motivated due to Democratic control of Putnam County politics and the Tennessee General Assembly.
It sounds like a familiar claim.
No, sir. I think it's because you did illegal things. He's also claiming all the positions are in cahoots, and they're just out there to get me because I'm exposing them. And the Cookville Herald-Citizen regularly reported Byron's bizarre tactics and public verbal assaults of Putnam County elected officials. Which, my thing is, like, if you're wanting to, like, get reelected or a higher position, this really isn't the way to go about it. The Tennessee Republican Party soon claimed no connection to Byron, but they did possibly have some campaign contributions and list of paid political consultants that kind of proved otherwise. Mm-hmm. In the summer of 1998, he sought the Republican nomination for the 6th Congressional District of Tennessee and the Tennessee State Senate in the primary. So he lost the Congressional District nomination, but he won the Senate primary by default because he was the only Republican candidate on the ballot.
That'll do it.
That'll do it. And he would be running against Democratic nominee Tommy Burks. So Burks had represented Putnam County for 28 years, 8 in the House and 20 in the Senate. So Tommy Burks was an old-style conservative Southern Democrat and a farmer in the area who was really popular in the county. So he was expected to win the 1998 election. Later, the rural area of Putnam County did shift from Democratic to Republican. It's now a very much like a Republican-dominated area. And Burks was also very, very conservative for a Democrat.
Yeah, so like we mentioned earlier, this isn't the Democratic Party that you typically think of today. So when you see this small town in Tennessee that was like a Democratic majority, it's kind of confusing. But then when you read about their platform at the time, you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you about Tommy Burks' platform, and you'll see is not very Democratic as today. So Tommy Burks was very well liked by many people on Capitol Hill, in spite of sometimes divisive legislative efforts. So I think the more like liberal Democrats were like trying to push some stuff, while this conservative Democrat was kind of messing them up. Mm-hmm. So just to kind of show some of his conservativeness, he introduced bills year after year with the goal of eliminating or greatly restricting access to abortions in Tennessee, which is still being taken up by Burke's successors today. This is still a big thing. 22 years later, men are still trying to take away women's rights in Tennessee, especially when it comes to abortions. Yep. So not much has changed there. On one occasion, Burks even sponsored a bill that would criminalize abortions, except when performed to save the life of the mother, which usually those bills are not, like they say when it can save the mother, but really there's so many like little things that it's basically just illegal altogether.
Yeah, like it makes it so restrictive that to even prove that it is needed to save the life of the mother is so difficult. Like it's not just as clear cut as, oh, okay, well, it will save the life of the mother, so therefore it's legal. It's like, no, you have to go through so many hoops to even prove that that's the case. All the while, you're physically in danger because you need this abortion.
Yeah, like the mother would probably be dead before she got approval to get the abortion.
Exactly.
Or they would perform it and then later get charged. However, this was like derailed as it would be a violation of Roe versus Wade, so those never really went anywhere. Burks also pushed for a law that would require first-time DUI offenders to pick up trash on the side of the road wearing orange vests that read, "I am a drunk driver." I thought was kind of funny.
That's one way to do it.
It wouldn't help. I mean, I do background checks. I see what people get sentenced for DUIs. It's kind of hefty sometimes, and they still do it, so they have no shame. And in 1996, he urged passage of a law that would fire teachers who taught evolution. Not a great look. But like, while people may have disagreed with Burks, he was always respectful and nice to people, no matter what their beliefs were. So at least he wasn't one of those who was just like, you should go die because you don't believe what I do. Yeah. Like, they said he was like a very like agreeable person, and he may disagree with you on like beliefs and topics, but he's not like going to make it where you just don't want to be around him because he's just yelling at you about his beliefs.
Yes.
And so, like, as I said, he doesn't really seem to be, like, what we view today as a Democrat. It was definitely very old school, and I think that's why, especially some of the Democrats we see who are a bit older today seem to have a bit of, like, you know, in their past, some different beliefs than what it is today.
Yes, because the party has shifted a lot in those last 20 years. So, as Courtney mentioned, he was a farmer, so when legislation was in session, Burks would wake up, feed his hogs, milk his cows, complete whatever other work needed to be done on his farm, and then drive the 100 miles to the Capitol. So he would spend the day at committee meetings and attending to other legislative business before making the 100-mile drive back home. There were also times that he was reported to have delivered a load of hogs to Knoxville, which was 90 miles east of his home, then driven the 190 miles west back to Nashville in the morning before the sessions began. Which is just insane.
Like, when did this guy sleep?
Right?
Because it's like an hour, I think about an hour and a half from like Cookeville to Nashville every morning, every night. Then if you go to Knoxville, that's like almost a 3-hour drive. Like,
there and back.
And he's doing all this work on the farm. It's not like he just woke up, drove. Like, he's like feeding his hogs, milking the cows, doing whatever else needs to be done on the farm. Like, that's crazy to me.
Like, this guy was dedicated to his farm work and his legislative activities. And there's also a long stretch of Interstate 40 between Nashville and Burks Farm that is now named in memory of him since he drove that road so often. So on the morning of October 19th, authorities were called to Burks' farm after reportings of a shooting. So journalists heard that Tommy Burks himself had been shot, and many immediately suspected Byron Looper. So Burks' farmhand, Wesley Rex, reported seeing a man in a black sedan driving away from Burks towards the highway. Rex then found Burks dead in the driver's seat of his truck. Rex worked with a police sketch artist, and many believe that the man he described looked just like Byron Looper, and later, when he was watching TV coverage of the election, he did identify Looper as the man he had seen on the farm that day. So another report came in from a man named Joe Bond, which kind of name is that? Sorry, it just cracked me up.
It sounds kind of made up.
I know, right? I was like, is this a real name, or is this like a pseudonym? Like,
you know, he should have gone into like bail bonds.
Yeah.
Like, I'm Joe Bond, I'll get your bail bond, or something like that.
Joe Bond was a sergeant in the Marine Corps living in Hot Springs, Arkansas. So he had gone to high school with Byron Looper, and he said that he had approached him a few months before the murder and said he was running for office and planned on killing his opponent. So he asked his advice on how to do this, but apparently Joe Bond didn't take him seriously, which, you know, this guy's crazy, right? Like,
that's my thing too. Like, imagine some guy you went to high school with who you may or may not like still keep in touch with, but you just get a call. So I'm thinking about running and killing my opponent. It's like,
can you help me with this?
What are you talking about? What? Like, hang up. This is a prank.
Yeah,
though.
no thanks, sir. But then Looper arrived at Bond's home again a few days after the murder and said that he had done it. And Bond still didn't believe him, but then he saw the news coverage of the murder, so he's like, oh shit, this is real. Okay, so then he contacted the police finally. Bond claims that Looper told him, I did it, man, I killed that dude, and when Bond asked who he was talking about, he said, quote, that guy I was running against, I busted a cap in that dude's head. So, after leaving Arkansas, Looper traveled to Georgia and then finally arrived home to Cooksville 5 days after the murder in the middle of the night, and police were waiting for him and arrested him. Now.
Which, like, if you do murder someone, don't run.
Right?
Like, that immediately makes you suspicious. Like, I just went to Arkansas. I drove to Arkansas to tell my friend I did it.
Like, okay, sir, that's not the brightest idea. So now things get crazy. So Tennessee state law states that Tommy Burks' name would be removed from the ballot, but it was too late for anyone else to be added because it was so close to the election. Meaning, Byron Looper was now running unopposed. Which is probably why he murdered his opponent. So immediately after Burks' funeral, his widow, Charlotte Burks, decided she would run as a Democratic write-in candidate. And the Putnam County Republican Party even endorsed Charlotte Burks over Looper, which is good.
Yeah, like, what a bad bitch. Right? She's, like, literally mourning her husband, and she's like, you know what? Me. Yeah. It's
she's
me.
Like,
Come on.
I'm going to take his seat. So on Election Day, Charlotte Burks won 90% of the votes and was the first Tennessee State Senate candidate to win as a write-in on the ballot. So Looper still received more than 1,000 votes, although some of them did occur during early voting before Burks was murdered. And Charlotte Burks would go on to serve in the Tennessee State Senate until 2014. So just a few years ago.
Yeah, and like I think I read she only isn't still because she was like, I'm just done. Yeah. Like, I want to retire. I don't want to run anymore.
Absolutely. So Byron Looper went through 8 different attorneys in the year it took him to go to trial. And so one of his defense attorneys claims that Looper was not capable of firing the single 9mm shot, and that instead he believes Looper had Joe Bond kill Burks for him. Which I couldn't really find any information about why he didn't believe he was capable of this, other than they called him a, quote, bumbling figure, which I just don't understand. Do you think he's too dumb to shoot a gun? Like, I don't understand the logic behind that.
And it's not like this was, like, a stealthy, like, crazy, like, you literally, like, ambushed a guy and shot him in the head and
drove away.
That's it. And, like, literally, like, you killed your, like, running opponent during an election year. Like, clearly you're the first suspect.
Yeah. So the defense attempted to have 2 witnesses at trial who would speak about Bond offering to sell weapons to a handyman in his apartment building, and that he obstructed justice in a recent military investigation. So, I don't know what either of those things has to do with Bond supposedly having murdered Burks, but the judge agreed because they denied these witnesses, which the attorneys claimed has to do with Looper's conviction, which is just nonsense because there's no evidence that Bond had anything to do with this, other than Looper told him about it, and that he was one of the witnesses at trial. So Looper did have somewhat of an alibi. So his mom and her neighbors testified that Looper was at her home in Georgia the morning Burks was murdered. But FYI, your mom is not usually the most solid alibi, so...
Yeah, if it's your mom or your wife or your girlfriend, like, not good options.
So Looper was found guilty on August 23rd, 2000, and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. And the Burks family did ask that the death penalty not be sought because they didn't feel like they would ever get closure with the numerous appeals that would ultimately follow that sentence. They're like, nope, we rather would just know that he's in prison for life without parole and we're done with this. We don't have to relive this year after year through all of his appeals. So Looper did spend time in Bushy Mountain State Prison before being transferred to the Morgan County Correctional Complex.
Fun fact, Bushy Mountain State Prison is now closed and is open for tours, and it's really, really cool. And they actually have former inmates and former guards who can come and, like, give you stories. Like, they'll just go around and talk and be like, yeah, you know, I was here and I saw my buddy over there get stabbed over blah, blah, blah. And it's like, oh my gosh, this is so crazy. Like, yeah, but it's really cool. So if you're ever in the area, definitely go there.
Definitely. Well, what Byron did there on his first day was that he refused to scrub the pots and pans. So that resulted in him having kitchen duty for an extra month. Because they're like, no, you don't really get to pick what you do and don't do here, sir.
You're forgetting who's in charge here. It's not you.
Yes, and like other inmates described him as just like well-educated and arrogant. And he's just like, no, I'm not going to wash that. And they're like, oh, yes, you are. You're going to do it longer now.
You're here with us now too, buddy. You're not any better than the rest of us.
Yes. So on June 26, 2013, 48-year-old Byron Looper was found unconscious in his cell and pronounced dead at 11:10 a.m. So the autopsy showed cause of death as, I'm sorry if I mispronounced this, hypertensive and atherosclerotic cardiomyopathy with high levels of antidepressants as a contributing cause. So basically some type of heart attack situation. However, on the morning of his death, Looper had assaulted a pregnant prison guard at 9 a.m. and was restrained, according to prison officials, quote, with the least amount of force necessary, and returned to his cell, where he was found dead 2 hours later at 48 years old. So, upon learning this information, Looper's family was skeptical of the first autopsy and ordered a second one. So the second medical examiner has never released a final report, but says his findings do differ from that of the first medical examiner. So the original autopsy notes that the hyoid bone was intact and showed no trauma, but the second medical examiner could not locate the hyoid bone. And so the hyoid bone is located in the neck and often shows signs of damage following strangulation. So it would be pretty important to note whether or not it seemed damaged. The first medical examiner also reported that Looper's heart was abnormally enlarged, which would align with the heart attack, but the second medical examiner found it to be within normal limits. So again, the second medical examiner did not issue a final ruling because he lacks witness statements as well as medical records, and he believes there may be reasonable explanations for the differing findings. So he's like, I'm not willing to say like that he was murdered, but that there are some inconsistencies between what I found and what the first medical examiner found. However, both medical examiners did note injuries that were consistent with handcuffs. And a letter an inmate sent to his girlfriend the day of Looper's death was recovered, and the letter said, quote, I need you to get me away from this prison. These guards are crazy. I just seen them kill a man today. And he went on to say that he was 2 cells down from, quote, some chubby white guy when he saw the guards, quote, beat the man to death while he was on the ground in handcuffs. And there's never been anything more about his death than what did or did not happen. So that is the insane story of Byron, low tax, Looper, the murder of Tommy Burks, the successful write-in campaign of his widow Charlotte Burks, and the suspicious death of low tax while in prison.
Yeah, this was a crazy story. So my dad brought it up to me and was like, oh, I remember this case, this guy changed his name to low tax, murdered his opponent, all this stuff. And yeah, I was looking it up, and my dad didn't know that he was found dead in his prison cell and stuff. And he was like, what? Which When I read it, the first thing I thought was like, I'm sensing some jailhouse justice. Like, usually there's like a like ranking in like the like with inmates, and they really do not take kindly to like people hurting pregnant women. That's like one of their like morals, you know. So I was like, oh, did they just like someone found out and like get them? It could have been the guards. Who knows what happened?
Maybe it was the guy who wrote to his girlfriend and claimed it was the guards, and he was trying to cover himself. Maybe he did it.
Yeah, because I mean, who knows? But yeah, it's a crazy story, and it's like the more you look into it, the more you're just like, wait, what?
You're like, and then what? And then what? And his badass widow over there being like, nope, I'm gonna take his seat, and gets enough write-in votes to win the election. Like,
yeah, like she literally had to plan her husband's funeral, and then she was like, you know what? Nope, I gotta step up, and I'm going. And like, total bad bitch.
Yes. So yeah, we wanted to give you guys a little, like I said, election-themed story, even though this will come out a couple weeks after the election, but maybe that'll give you time to process and recover from the election if you need to before being thrown into some more political discussion. But
yeah, it's
super
very
interesting case.
2020 has had just like a very interesting political climate, and so here's just a story of like another pretty crazy political case, and hopefully the presidential election doesn't turn anything out like this. Like, that would be bad. But
yeah, so Courtney, what is your perk of the week?
My perk of the week is that I got an extra hour to sleep last night.
That's a good perk.
Anyone who knows me, I like sleep. But I also usually stay up late and get up early, even usually on the weekends. And so I'm usually lacking in the sleep department. So it was so nice. Yeah, I woke up today at like 7:30 and I was like feeling awake, and I was like, what is happening to me?
Like, why am I awake this early?
Why am I awake? And then I was like, oh, my body thinks it's 8:30. That's what's happening. But yeah, it was just super nice getting that extra hour, getting a little extra sleep. I'm going to hate it come, I think it's, March, when we have to spring forward. I hate that, but I'm going to appreciate this extra hour for now.
Yes, even though it now gets dark at 4:30, which is very sad and depressing, but you know.
Well, we're not going to focus on that part. We're going to short-term think. But, Jaclyn, what is your perk of the week?
So my perk of the week, we talked about, I think it was 2 weeks ago now. I don't know, the weeks are running together. But we talked about honey lavender coffee, and yesterday Andrew and I went to the donut shop, and I got a honey lavender latte, which is the first one that I've had in, I guess it's only been a couple months, so it's not that long. But after Courtney and I were talking about it, I really wanted a honey lavender latte, so I went and I got one, and it was delicious. And I also got some delicious donuts, which are always good, so.
Yeah, I'm probably going to walk down to Honey Bee today and get a honey lavender coffee, because I need one. I need some coffee.
Need some caffeine before Courtney and I's impending, imploding friendship happens this afternoon when the Bengals play the Titans. So,
yeah, I mean, it's not, the Bengals haven't really done that well this year, so I feel like it's just kind of like, well, I mean, we might lose. Who knows? But anything can happen, but...
It's, yeah, I'm not very hopeful, but you know, it's okay. I'll still be there in my Bengal print leggings and my jersey all ready to go.
Yeah.
So that's what we do.
Yeah. I'm going to get some pizza and all that. I'm very happy because...
We're going to get pizza.
We've had to like go somewhere every weekend because we didn't have internet. So now I'm like, we can go back and have the Titans and Red Zone and just chill. Yes. Thank God. I cannot wait to just lay on my couch.
Gosh, Sunday, like football Sundays are just my favorite. Like, just get some good food and we just sit on the couch and watch football together all day, and it's just wonderful.
I have some leftover buffalo chicken dip from the party last night.
Oh, very nice.
Eat that up. I'm excited.
Andrew's making a big pot of chili, so I can smell it right now, and it smells really good.
And it's back to Jaclyn and Courtney's Food Podcast.
Yes. If you guys want to tell us about your football Sundays and your food, you can email us at caffeinatedcrimespod@gmail.com. You can find us on Instagram at caffeinatedcrimespod. You can find us on Facebook at Caffeinated Crimes Podcast. Also on Twitter at caffcrimespod. That's CAFF Crimespod. And also, if you feel so inclined and you want some extra bonus content and you have a few extra dollars, you can throw them our way at patreon.com/caffeinatedcrimes.
And don't forget, we're going to keep reminding you, we're still doing our Apple review giveaway. And so once we get to 50 reviews, we'll go ahead and select one person to win a pin, a sticker, and a $10 gift card to the coffee shop of your choice. We'll accept if you steal your boyfriend or your mom or your dad's phone. And do it. Just send it to us. Let us know you did. We want to give you guys goodies, so please go and review us. But in the meantime, go have a cup of coffee.
And don't commit a crime.